Welcome. I love the lamp in the background. I used to have one of those.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They work.
So dude, thanks again for joining us. We have a lot of audience members who are very excited. In fact, there's already 51 viewers live. So they're very excited about learning from you, learning about your journey. So yeah, welcome. And dude, tell us about yourself. How did you find this channel? What got you into vision, etc.?
I'm not sure how I found the channel. I mean, I think it was just like recommended or something, and it was like you analyzing, I think, like the dating show, or it might have been a different thing. But I kind of clicked around a little bit, and I liked your analysis and the breadth of what you're talking about, and saw you on Patreon, and yeah. And then I guess for me, with eyesight specifically, I'd heard about it sort of peripherally, that some people had tried to improve their eyesight. And I'd heard about pinhole glasses. I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but like if you want to take off your glasses and make a little hole and look through that hole, you can do that. And even if you have, prescription or whatever, you'll notice that what you see through that hole is actually significantly clearer.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's a nice little experiment if you want everybody in the audience or whatever.
Oh, dude, since you mentioned it, I just searched it up on Amazon, so I'll share my screen so we can examine it together. But
yeah,
so these are pinhole glasses. This is what David's talking about. And yeah, go ahead, man. Tell us about it.
Sure. Well, I mean, it just I think the idea is just that it directs the light like directly back to the back of your retina, because like the reason why people have blurry vision in the case of myopia is that their eye has become elongated, and so the light kind of doesn't all focus properly on the back of the retina, the fovea centralis. And so if you just have a direct beam of light, though, then you'd have clear vision. And so and these are not safe for driving also, by the way, so don't think that you should use them, because there's kind of like a strobe light effect when you're kind of turning and things like that.
Makes sense.
But what's good about them is that they're not a lens, and sort of the issue with lenses is that they point light to a specific location, which could be fine if your retina's position was totally fixed, but the reality that I understand is that the position of the retina is actually subject to mostly extraocular muscular pressure. So there's muscles that surround the eye that are responsible for moving the eye, and the sort of alternative theory is actually that that we focus the eyes by squeezing them. Like, so when you're looking up close, our eyes actually are being squeezed to a different length. And so the basic idea of how you end up improving your eyesight, or why someone ends up seeing blurry in distance vision, is that we squeezed our eyes to look at something up close, and then when we're looking up something in the distance, we're not releasing the muscular tension.
Oh, wow.
So that's why it's like really amazing. And for some people, you can get very quick results, because it's about releasing a muscle group, as opposed to that there's something structurally really deeply. I don't want to say wrong. I mean, it's the language is kind of somewhat tricky or whatever, but like. If you look at the data, and there's a lot of data going back, say, 100 years. I could share my screen.
Yeah, please share your screen.
Or if you want, you could just look up.
Sure.
How do I share? Yeah, here, just look up March of myopia, and look for a Nature article.
Yeah, March of myopia. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the and yeah. So the myopia boom. It's the top hit from Nature.com.
Oh, okay. March of myopia boom, and it's from Nature.
Yeah, myopia boom.
Oh, this one. Okay, yeah. So let me share my screen, and then we can go over the article together, dude. I love this. We're just like, this is like, I I've seen those glasses you talked about, but I didn't realize that I could buy them. Like one time I
Yeah.
got a vision exam in China. This was back
Yeah.
in the day, and they gave me something like that, similar to
Oh, really?
put over my eyes. And I was like, wait, if I didn't even need lenses to do a vision exam, why am I wearing lenses? I remember having that thought, and it's like this, all of that's coming back to me now. But anyways, the myopia boom.
Yeah. So just scroll down. There's going to be a chart which is showing. Yeah, I mean, I mean, they also just mentioned it in text too. But yeah, right here. Yeah,
Right
yeah,
here.
right there. The chart with the
So that's the
estimated.
Asian countries.
Yeah.
Wow.
So look at how low, the rate, like in Hong Kong, for example, it looks like it's below 10%
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the rate of myopia in 20-year-olds. And then now it's up to 90%, right? So all these countries are like around 80 to 90%.
Wow.
So yeah, so the question is like, okay, well, so what do you attribute that to? Because a lot of people, they say heredity, genetics, whatever, but it's just like, okay, did the genetics change that much in what, 80, 90 years?
Yeah. And then, of
Um,
course, other people would say, yo, it's just because everyone's on the computer, which I could potentially see as an explanation too.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Wow.
but that actually, I mean, I guess we could go into that, uh, there's still a question of, okay, well, what is the mechanism? So like we say, okay, you're on the computer so much that it changes the shape of your eye. Like, what does that mean? Like being on the computer grows your eye longer, and then it's like, okay, well, what happens when you get off the computer? And there's a bunch of kind of things that like basically the mainstream, understanding is like, and if you look it up also, you'll see that, if you go to like the NIH or whatever, they'll say things like, it's not understood, the causes aren't understood, but maybe it's screens or maybe this and maybe that. And it's like, um, yeah, it's just like it's just kind of weird, I guess. The idea that someone, for example, could be age 24, didn't have glasses, and then they go to law school, and then suddenly they need glasses, and it's like, okay, did they actually grow their eyes longer, or is it stress and strain, and are they holding too much tension in their eyes? And it's just that we're not getting much mainstream press for people reversing this condition, even though I imagine that if you talk to a bunch of optometrists and ophthalmologists and you say, hey, does someone ever come in and just have a lower prescription? And they tell you, yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, it happens once in a while. And then it's like, are you studying why that happens? And it's like, nope, I just prescribe glasses professionally. Like, that's just what I do. And that seems to be what they're, in general, we live in a society that, right now you get shamed, I think, for even implying that a disease is curable. Like that it's like rude to tell someone that, they're obese because of this or that, or diabetes, that, or, all of these things are like rude. And then also this can actually have roots that are kind of psychological. So my personal story actually is, uh, I mean, I was wearing glasses. I had glasses from age 12 to 24.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, just like, I couldn't see the board at some point in class, and, hey, maybe you need glasses. I got glasses, and it was like, oh, cool, I can see clearly. And I just wore them, without thinking anything about it. And then, I mean, at some point, I had some kind of relative that I'd heard about having pinhole glasses or whatever. And we had a book in the house from someone that improved his eyesight, named Mayer Schneider. And so he was actually born like legally blind and had a bunch of surgeries and stuff. And like his eye, his pupil like fully expanded. It looks like a pie with like a slice taken out or
Wow.
whatever. Like, so, I mean, he had like, his vision was like, he was like the blind person. Like he was living as a blind person with like reading Braille and stuff like that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And he learned about what's called the Bates method. So, so Bates there's an ophthalmologist like turn of the century, 19th or 20th century, I guess. And he started basically curing a lot of people. Like he just figured it out, and he was just like, it's just stress and strain basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has a few different techniques that were popular. One being palming, which is just to cover your eyes with your palms for like 6 minutes plus or something like that. And there's a thing called the long swing, which is basically a way of just like standing and just basically twisting your body, to like relieve tension, and also to there's a lot of really interesting things actually just about like how we see and the potential differences. Like something I think about a lot is like moving the eyes more. So there seems that people with glasses tend to stare more, which is an interesting idea because like if you stare, you're not really refreshing your visual environment as much. Like the more you move your eyes, the more you mentally are like adjusting like, oh, things are changing in the world, right? Like things look different. I'm sort of moving, things aren't just stable and stuck. Whereas if I just stare, eventually your mind, if I just like stare, eventually my mind kind of is just like blanking out. And so it's a very interesting kind of concept. Like, what if I'm supposed to be moving my eyes another 3 times per second or 10 times or something? How is that going to feel mentally in terms of like the mental sort of refresh rate? And what does that mean psychologically also? Like, do you end up feeling more free because it doesn't seem like the world is sort of stuck in one place, but rather things are always refreshing? So, that for me, I went kind of a lot more psychological, sort of with my own like route of like healing and stuff like that. There are other people that are a lot more like eyesight exercises.
Mm-hmm.
I have this book. This is from Nathan Oxenfeld, who I think is like basically the best teacher right now on YouTube or whatever. He's just full time like eyesight improvement. Um, he has a website, Integral Eyesight,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So he's really great. I went more this sort of like lazy approach or like sort of naturalist approach, where the idea is that like the okay, so yeah, so Dr. Bates basically is saying like relaxation is basically like the cure. Like so just relaxing your body is like the way to see clearly. And I read that quote after reading the Mayer Schneider book, and I just felt that I was very tense physically. And that was just like, hey, it makes sense, like to try to relax. Like there's no what's the risk in trying to relieve physical tension. And then I did it. I started doing it, and my vision just improved. And it just improved, and I can just sense a very direct correlation between being tense or uncomfortable and having blurrier vision, and being like more and more relaxed and having clarity. And so, over the past 10 years, basically, it's been a process of learning to become a more relaxed person overall. Both, in terms of my mental, like, okay, how do I dress kind of situations, and also physically, just like the feelings, when you feel tense in a certain area, and then figuring out like, oh, I'm tense because I need to sit like this instead of like that, or my breathing is not like reaching the full body. Improving those habits and stuff like that. And then just the whole relationship to feeling the body has been a huge change. Like one of the big things really is about, okay, when I feel pain and discomfort in my body, do I fight that? So I think the initial urge was fighting it and being like, oh, it's something bad to notice that my shoulders are tense and I'm going to fight against it. Maybe I'll do a little like this or something, and then try to move on. Or like, sometimes people stretch, and you kind of like stretch a few times. It's uncomfortable. You don't like it. And then you move on, you do something else. As opposed to maybe like if you can get into sort of more of a flow, or like, you're working with your chi or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been a big like shift in terms of like, okay, am I tense because I think I'm tense,
Mm-hmm.
or, is it like, is my body actually messed up? Is my mind? And so that's been like a big thing about like kind of discovering like how to just like allow myself to function in the way that, works better.
So,
And yeah.
David, just to go back on the vision thing, what was your prescription initially when you decided, okay, I want to?
I had a -4 and a -3.75 with astigmatism, like I think -1. 0.75 or minus 1.5 or something, and then some cylinder or something.
So basically, you were like, I'm -6, so I'm very deep in the end. But I remember being -4, and I actually remember being 3.75 and 4. I think this was high school or something, or maybe this was middle school. So like, so if I started where you were, maybe I could have gotten there too. So like, because someone in the comments was like, "Oh yeah, can a -6 person do it, or can a -5 person do it?"
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I've worked with people that are so one of the people that I interviewed actually started with, I believe, -14.
Oh my God, that's like way past legally blind.
Yeah, so that's well, legal blindness. Yeah. So that person is Greg Marsh also. So he was someone I interviewed. He's on YouTube. Um, and I've worked with people that have been at -9. There are people that have been in contact with me that had -8 and are down to -6 or whatever. I just talked to a woman who had -9, and she actually within 2 weeks she said she was like seeing totally clearly, but that she kind of fell out of the habit or something, and now she has the same prescription, -9 or something, which is interesting. Um, but I mean, for me in general, my understanding really just tends to be that people tend to just carry tension in their mind and body, and through releasing that tension, people improve their clarity. And I see it as it should be the way that I try to represent this whole like pursuit is generally trying to just figure out, hey, what's best for your body, like right now, and to spend time doing that. So I do a lot of things that aren't necessarily eye exercises. Like I advocate just like dancing, right? So take off your glasses or contacts and just dance. And while you're dancing, have more of a sense of I could change how I move fundamentally to improve that, or thinking about posture and body language as being like, okay, just because I have tense shoulders or I have some sense of discomfort in this area, it doesn't mean that I have to stay that way into the future. And so what I'm saying is, just realize there's also a potential for you to release tension in and around your eyes. And, there are areas of the neck that you're used to feeling a certain way, but actually your neck could be a lot softer. It could be more flexible and all these different things. So I say that because I think a lot of people are skeptical, right? This is a relatively fringe thing at this moment. The fact that I might be selling something or whatever, and it's just like, yeah, maybe it's true, maybe it's not true, blah, blah, blah. That's why I try to just be like, look, everything that I recommend should have intrinsic value, right? Learn, like if you feel tense, releasing and relieving tension should be a gain either way, whether or not you like immediately improve your eyesight. But in general, what people say is that there's nothing that people are healthy. Like in general, myopia, you're healthy. You have healthy eyes. It's not like some kind of disease that whatever the cells are, I don't know, metastasizing or something like that. That they're actually healthy eyes, and I believe that it is literally there's muscles surrounding the eyes. When those muscles are released and properly coordinated, people can see more clearly.
And I know some people who would say that. I think I'm the case too. If you look at my eyes just pop out a lot because my whole eye is growing too big. So even if I improve those ciliary muscles that control the lens, I remember even asking an optometrist about it. He's like, yeah, it could potentially improve your focus a little, but because your eyes is growing at a rate that's so big, you're never going to get to perfect vision again without corrective lenses. But then I'm thinking about what you're saying, and if it really are something related to the muscles around the eyes, then potentially if you relax them really, maybe it'll slowly help the shape of the eye in some way. So I'm just throwing ideas out there, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, so there are a couple factors in that. I mean, one is that I don't think that the ciliary muscles are really the primary for focus, even though that's like what's written. So Dr. Bates actually did some research on this by like removing the lens, I think, out of the eyes of certain animals,
Ooh.
and it showed that they were still accommodating. I'm not exactly sure how he did this, um, basically, um,
I'm gonna while you think about that, I'll try to see if I can find some of those base studies. That's real. I've actually heard about what you said, that apparently the lens at least is not as much involved in focus as we think. So like what you're saying is not something off. Like I've actually heard about this. But anyways, keep going.
yeah. So it's called like so the modern theory is called the Helmholtz accommodation theory or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we're saying is that that's not it's not right or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So the idea that it's just about the lens. So here the idea actually is that the superior oblique muscle, which is like wrapping around the eyes like a belt, um, that these are what's responsible for lengthening the eye. And so that by releasing those muscles specifically, we can see more clearly.
And give me that title of that book again, so I can just put it in the description or the chat.
Yeah, so give up your glasses for good.
Okay.
That's Nathan's book. I also have a book. I have a couple books on Amazon.
Mhm.
So I can see clearly now. The strain is gone.
Oh,
That's
that's
my
pretty funny.
yeah.
I can see clearly now the strain is gone. That's really cute.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be happy to give it to you and your readers or whatever for your people for free. Also, like whatever download, if they want to check it out. Yeah, and then I used to sell a book called they're both on Amazon. The Cure for Blur is the other thing.
So the cure for blur.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So you've written two books on the subject.
yeah. But
Mhm.
I honestly I really highly recommend Nathan's book. Kind of over you know if you really want like in depth about vision and eyes and a lot more exercises and stuff.
Mhm.
I actually I recommend his book over mine.
Mhm.
I have like my stuff is more more along sort of the psychological kind of concepts about relaxation and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Okay, so I'm going to link this too. This is the one, Nathan Oxfeld. This
yeah.
is Nathan, the Nathan book.
Yeah.
So, at what age again did you start becoming myopic?
I think 11 or 12, something like that. Yeah.
I see. I see. So, in a way, because I've been myopic since I was like 6 or 7. I played too much Doom. Remember back in the day?
I
Those
remember.
those graphics were such shit, man. They destroyed my eyes. The
Yeah.
the really bad thing about Doom is that I played it in college once, and just
Yeah.
by playing an hour, I got so much of a headache I had to take aspirin. So I
Yeah.
don't know why my dad let me play that fucking game when I was a kid. Like
Yeah.
even as an adult, when your eyes are supposedly more stable, I fucking like almost threw up after playing an hour of Doom, the first
Yeah.
one. So why the
Yeah.
fuck was I playing Doom when I was little? It's like parenting, right? Parents don't know shit. At least with their first kid, they don't know shit. And I was the only kid, so they didn't know
Yeah.
shit they still don't know shit.
Well, they let you do what you want to do, right?
Exactly. So I'm actually, I'm finding some .orgs
Mm.
about the lens, and apparently the lens only it's like 25 to 35% of your focusing power. Which
Yeah.
actually, dude, that actually makes sense because if you think about LASIK, what LASIK is doing is LASIK is cutting your cornea. It's taking the cornea and kind of carving it a little smaller. So if you take the conventional view, which seems to be supported by people who have results from LASIK surgery, your cornea probably does the most of the focusing, and then the lens is about 25 to 35%. But I guess from what you're saying, from what you've learned, it's also the muscles around your eyes too.
Right. Or just that there's the issue of just like where is the retina? So where are you trying to focus to?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
I see. I see. It's very interesting. It's so I'll tell you guys, for those of you watching, I'll tell you my brief story related to this. Is actually cool wearing a little bandana. I'm gonna wear this more. Give some color. But anyways, so I wanted to, because I remember in China when I was growing up, I have a board back here, which if I find a pen, okay, watch this, guys. For those of you watching, so when I was in China, can you see this? No, you can't. This pen doesn't work. So this pen doesn't work either. Oh, this is a comedy moment right here. This pen, you can kind of see that a little bit. A little bit. I don't know, but basically what I'm trying to draw is in China, all of us had this little thing we had to take home where it was like little squares inside little squares. And apparently we're supposed to look at it and it was supposed to train our eyes. This was the 90s in China. And of course I never did it because I was already nearsighted when my family moved back to China from Chicago. So I was like, fuck it, I'm nearsighted already. Why should I give a fuck about that? But maybe there's something to be said about age-old Chinese wisdom. Maybe they had something over, maybe whatever that weird thing, it was trying to train your eyes. In fact, I still remember the name of it. So I'm gonna search it up. I'll show you guys a screen grab. It's called Yuan Tiao Biao. Yuan means like far, Tiao means like jump, and then Biao is like the chart, Yuan Tiao Biao. So this is it. Holy shit, dude. This is my fucking childhood. Let me show you guys. So I'm gonna share my screen right now, guys. Yeah, David, I'm totally, I want to get your perspective on this. So this is called the Yuan Tiao, Yuan Shi Biao. Never mind, Yuan Shi Biao.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So it's like, I remember when I was young looking at it, looking at the center, and it just scared me because everything was flashing. It's also an optical illusion, right? You can make it seem like a pyramid, or you could look into it. So it's like an optical. So it scared me a little, but then I realized if you translate this, I was wrong about this character. This is Yuan Shi Biao, which seems like this is for people who are farsighted. So maybe it was good that I actually didn't use this, but like this is everyone in China. Everyone in China had to take one of these home to look at, to like train their vision. I mean, you didn't have to, but that's what they said. In fact, this is the Chinese website. This is Taobao. This is China's version of Amazon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to read the label, because that'll at least get us to the truth of like what the government was trying to make us do. So if we go here, 查看原图 means we're looking at the original. Of course, it might not show me, because if like, who's to say someone couldn't print it out? But have you ever seen this before?
I haven't seen that specifically, but it reminds me of some charts that they use for astigmatism, where you kind of look at the center, and then if you notice that some areas are like blurrier than others, even though it's all sort of like the same, it's sort of like or sort of like a practice where you like look at it, and your aim is to have it so that everything is sort of similar.
I see. So
it's interesting that, you know, maybe they're more concerned about people being farsighted, like that nearsighted is okay, because maybe they're training people for more close work as being the more.
Makes sense. So I can actually, we can zoom in on this. We're good. I can read this real quick. So 本图适用于防止青少年儿童近视. Okay, so it was for nearsighted. It's supposed to, this is what it's saying. The Chinese government, whatever company that gave this to all the Chinese public schools when I was in China, this is supposed to prevent nearsightedness in 青少年, so like young kids and then kids, teenagers. 学习看书眼睛疲劳时, so when you're feeling eye strain, 观望此图可消除眼睛疲劳. So basically it's saying when you're feeling eye strain, look at this and it will reduce eye strain. So it's not supposed to cure your vision. It's just supposed to reduce your eye strain. It kind of makes sense. Like even optometrists I've seen, they tell me after 20 minutes, right, 20. So you look at an object that's about 20 feet away for 20 seconds. So that way you're changing the focal length of your eyes and, you know, of the muscles and of the lens. So I guess that's what that Chinese thing that we all had to take home was, except it probably just assumed you were inside. So you didn't want to look outside, or you didn't want to go outside to play. So you just look at that chart, you know, such totalitarianism. It's like, okay, you just have to look at this chart and then you go back to work.
I like it though. I think I'll print something like that out. I mean, I think it's
Yeah, I will send a link for anyone who's interested. This is the Chinese version of the 2020 chart. Chinese version of the 2020 rest chart. It's funny that like it's so I totally forgot about this Yuan Kelbiao thing until we're having this conversation. This is why I love having these conversations. It's like so many cultures, having this type of this type of problem with your eyes has been something that every culture's dealt with. And in fact, I'm going to share my screen again because it's mentioning something that I want to bring up here too, which is something I should have done more as a kid, but I didn't. So here's my screen. So we just talked about what this thing was supposed to be used for, supposed to help prevent eye strain. And then, so number 3, the third point is talking about, okay, you got to stand about 5 meters. And then 每日可观数. So you can look at it as much as you want. Look at it for 2 to 4 minutes. What I like is number 4. 在做眼保健操或I don't 带光学. I don't know what that means, but basically what the beginning means is in China, if you went to a government public school, which most of us did because most of us weren't rich in the 90s, twice a day you were forced to do eye relaxation exercises. So you would close your eyes and then you would there's a little cavity here right under the eyebrow. So you'd massage that for 64 seconds. And then about here, you would massage that for 64 seconds. And there's a bunch of cavities here. You would massage that. And then there's the temple area. You would massage that. And then you do this exercise where you go like this. So you'd massage these muscles around the eyes. So we were forced to, in fact, there'd be a student monitor looking at us, making sure all of us would do that eye relaxation exercise. And if we didn't, they'd report us to like the administrative people in our school. So like the Chinese government took that eye exercise really, really seriously. And I just mentioned that because that graph that I just showed, that little chart that we had to take home, they said, okay, use this in conjunction with the eye relaxation exercises. And the sad part about all this is because in school we were forced to do it, most of us didn't carry the habit. Again, it's about intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation because all of our motivation was extrinsic. We didn't want our teacher beating our ass. We didn't want the administrators calling our class out in front of everyone. We just did it not knowing what it was for. But maybe it actually could have helped our eyes, like a lot of our eyes. Like I stopped doing those eye exercises when I came back to America. Sometimes I do them, but not enough. Not twice a day, and I never looked at that chart again. So I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, forced relaxation is kind of a problem, I guess, if that's the...
It's like an oxymoron, right?
Yeah, but it's, yeah, I mean, I think both of those things, definitely can be effective. But, I try to... definitely go with the intrinsic, like my hope for the stuff that I make is that someone can just feel their body and feel a pathway for improving how their body feels on this sort of like baseline level, to have some sense of, okay, this is how I feel baseline. And then like, what would make me feel better kind of baseline, or what is like instant gratification, like instant healthy gratification is self-gratification. Yeah, that's the that's sort of the pathway that I'm trying to mostly work on. And I think once a person feels that they have a strong sense of that, then they're going to be more likely to potentially engage in things that are, maybe more difficult or that require more sort of faith or more, I guess just like maybe less certainty that it. But I don't think that's necessary. I guess in general, because relaxation, if you take it on the sort of holistic viewpoint, it just should be beneficial. Like I'm like, okay, what could really relax my body right now? And it's just like, oh, closing my eyes. It's like, okay, I close my eyes. It feels nice. It's so that's sort of my pathway, as opposed to hey, do this exercise 30 minutes a day or twice a day, every day for the next 6 months or 5 years. And if you do that, then possibly you're going to get some results or something. And I think a lot of people will be like, well, I'm not going to make that. Like I don't even make a commitment to eat a salad, twice a week or something. Like, why would I do something that sort of seems boring or seems difficult and then maybe won't work? I'd rather be like, hey, do you like to dance or do you like to play a sport? Would you like to improve how you play the sport or how you dance? Great, that's good. That can also improve your eyesight. And if you take your glasses off, or you take your contacts out and you do those things, there's a very realistic chance that you will see more clearly within, it can be a few minutes, literally, where it's just like once you release it. Some people are going to take a long time to release, or there's certain areas of my own that I've taken a long time to, there's some shoulder tension for whatever reason that I've had, and it hasn't released over the course of a certain amount of years or something. But I don't think that it's necessarily fundamental, like that it didn't have to be that way, right? So I believe that there's some body worker that I could have seen, or there could have been some emotional kind of shift, or there can be like, okay, someone might have a tense back and maybe it's because they're stressed out about their financial situation, right? But it's not that their body is like, fundamentally designed to tense certain muscles and have bad blood flow into that area. It's just that they have it's a psychosomatic kind of situation. So that's what I'm thinking basically with the eyesight stuff. And that there's a lot of stuff, dating also related, just like how you make eye contact with people is a big, it's a big part of our life. And so the idea that, to look into, okay, what makes you uncomfortable when you're using your eyes with people, or something that I noticed was, wanting to look at a person, but then not letting myself look at the person because I had a general fear of just like the whole emotional interaction that could happen. And I think that that's a big root for a lot of people, is about developing agency and having an external threat. So someone's kind of telling you, hey, do this thing. Your body is saying, no, I don't want to read this book, or I don't want to, stare at the screen, or I don't want to do these things. But an external threat is telling you, you do this or else. And then I think what for me and for a lot of people is that an internal resistance stays alive, but you still force yourself to do that thing. And to me, that's sort of the genesis of the blurred vision, is contradicting impulses that are unresolved. And I think that's like a root for a lot of astigmatism and blurry vision, because you're actually giving your body competing impulses. So your body and vision is so finely coordinated. It's not just like that the whole world is clear and that your eyes just naturally see everything clearly. It's well understood that you see what's clear, what you're focused on, really, and only what you're focused on. And like the center of what you're focused on. It's not everything. And then our minds are like putting this together.
Exactly. So, our minds, it goes in, it's upside down in our retina, and then our minds have to flip it. And on top of it, based on what our brains selectively want to see. And talking about this, that's why people hit motorcyclists so much, because their mind's telling them, we got to look out for cars. So they literally neglect any shapes, even though they see it, but their mind doesn't even process the shape. So sometimes it's like, why'd you hit the fucking motorist? Oh, because I didn't see him. It's like you saw him, but your mind wasn't trained to see him. So your mind's like, oh, that's not important. Of course, after you hit him, you're going to know it's important. So you're never going to forget to see a motorist again. But the first time, a lot of times it's because I believe it's called cognitive neglect or something, some neuroscience term.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So one thing I wanted to ask you is, so once you got your vision better, did it ever rebound again? Like, did it get worse after a while, or did it, like, once you got it better, it just stayed good?
So my vision, it has basically just been like, I see it as simple as this. Like, it's literally, if I can squeeze my eye longer and look somewhere like far, and have my eyes like I could focus up close and then look far while my eyes are still focused up close, and then see blurry in the distance. So like I can blur. Like right now, my eyes are blurry. Right, I'm crossing my eyes a little bit, I can give myself blurry vision at any point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or like I was up late last night, and at certain points my vision was a little blurry. So I kind of like let's say up here is like better, you know. I've sort of, you know, it's been sort of, it could be something like this. I had moments of like crystal clear clarity in the first few days or whatever, of improving my eyesight. But I mean, it was a period of time, you know, I went from having a -4 prescription to -2.25 to passing the driver's test. And that was over the course of a couple years, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm still basically improving my whole mind and body. And, so yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm that it's like a fixed. I'd say what's fixed sort of is that I think in general there isn't something fundamentally wrong with people's bodies, and I don't think there's necessarily something fundamentally wrong with their eyes either. But they're just not putting themselves in the position to see clearly. You know, it's just kind of like, so long as the eyes are squeezed, and you're not going to see them. You know, you're not going to see in the distance clearly. As soon as you release that, you know, you see clearly. And so some people, you know, you can read about it. They call them clear flashes. You know, or some people, they'll be like looking and they'll blink a couple times and suddenly they see things perfectly clearly, and then it's blurry again. Um, which I think is, it's sort of like, I mean, I don't know how often people go from being like tense to being relaxed, you know, but I think we're relatively less conscious of our bodies. You know, we sort of have an anti-body, I think, sort of society or something to some degree. Um, uh, so yeah, I mean, does that sort of answer the
Yeah,
question?
absolutely. And then the other question I had was those pinhole glasses that you talked about, which I will totally order to do some research. It's interesting. They're not even that expensive. So like I
Yeah,
could do a series where I just like review it. But anyways,
yeah.
how long did you wear those?
I mean, I was wearing them off and on for, I mean, a period of a few weeks or something. Like, it wasn't like all the time. I think the thing that was kind of cool about them was like it sort of made me a little bit more comfortable, like walking out in public with the blur.
Mhm.
Um, but I'd recommend people, like, here's something I did, um, and something to consider is like, okay, let's say you didn't have your glasses or your contacts.
Mhm.
You know, like, what would you do if you had to survive for a couple days? You know, because I hear a lot of people will tell me I'm blind without my glasses. It's a very common thing for people to say, I'm totally blind without my glasses. Often it's from someone who has a -1 prescription or -2, or whatever. And it's just like, you know, you are technically very incorrect,
Yeah.
you know,
I
or
didn't
whatever. And
start putting on my glasses until about I was minus. I think I didn't start putting on my glasses until I was like -2.75.
mhm,
For before that, I never ever had any issue except when one time in China, the fucking teacher put me in the back of the class. But that
uh,
was the only time I had problems. And then
yeah,
here's another funny, since we're just talking about different things. Part
yeah,
of I think part of the problem for why some students can't focus is probably because they're nearsighted and they haven't been diagnosed. Because when the teacher put me in the back of the class for about a week, I didn't focus that week. I couldn't see the board, so why the fuck should I focus? So
mhm,
I acted out in class. But
mhm,
anyways, but yeah, like you said, before 2.7, -2.7, I did not give a fuck. I barely wore my glasses. And then I came to America, and I guess glasses were just more accepted here. Like in China, you wear glasses. People are like, oh my God, you wear glasses. That's stopped now because most people in China wear glasses now. But
yeah,
even when I was in fucking middle school in America, Chinese parents,
yeah.
friends of my parents would be like, oh, you wear glasses. And I'd be like, so what? And my parents like, show respect to your elders. And I'm like, they're making fun of my glasses. I don't need to show.
And this was in America?
That's sorry. What'd you say? What's up?
Wait, where were the people making fun of you? That was here, or that
Yeah,
was in?
here in America, but like they're it's like a party of Chinese people, so they like
Oh, okay.
Chinese
Yeah,
culture shine through again.
yeah,
But you see, I bring that example because for the longest time in China, like glasses weren't cool, and kids wearing glasses is perceived as having problems, right? So when I was in China, I didn't wear glasses, and sometimes I would squint, which is really bad. And my parents were like, Jerry, well, you squinted so much your eyes got smaller. My parents, because in China they like big eyes, right? And my eyes used to be really big when I was little. So my parents like, Jerry, man, your eyes could have been bigger if you didn't squint so much. But like even like I didn't always squint, honestly. I only squinted when I really couldn't see, but I didn't find the psychological need to wear glasses until I came to America, and then everyone wore glasses, and then I wore glasses too. And then I remember 5th grade. The moment I wore glasses, I didn't know how to take them off anymore. Your body adapts. It's like a treadmill. Your body adapts, and then it can't go back down again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, you can go back down, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you're trying to inspire everyone to do, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, I'm totally down to try those pinhole glasses. In fact, they'd be kind of a welcome difference. I like being weird, so I'll totally walk around. I'll even go to Skid Row. I'll walk around like the most ghetto parts and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, anytime. But I mean, I definitely want to say that it's not really just all about pinhole glasses or whatever, at least in terms of my my perspective or method. I'd say, like one of the things is sort of just like about your habits and your routine. Like, so when you wake up in the morning, you don't have to necessarily put on your glasses immediately, especially if you don't have to go to work or whatever. You can wake up, do some meditation, do some workouts, do some movement stuff. And to just be conscious of like the possibility that like, what if all it was like changing how you use your body, that it wasn't something like, like deep into like who you are or your genetics or something. What if it was just like, you just have to sort of sit differently a little bit, and you just have to like, use your eyes differently or use your mind differently, and like allow yourself to see clearly as opposed to like put in effort. That's something I was, about the thing with the focus. I mean, I think that there is a really big deal about like, what do you actually feel like doing, and about doing things that you don't want to do. And that's sort of this, maybe it's sort of dangerous territory or something, but it's like, I think it's a really interesting thing to like really consider, like, are you looking where you want to look? Are you feeling like you're in the right place? And I feel like with the eyesight, for a lot of people, you could have a job and it's just like, I don't feel like doing this at all. Or something, and at some point someone's just deciding, well, look, I'm going to do things that I don't feel like doing for 8 hours a day or something like that. And so there's the other direction is sort of figuring that out and being like, okay, well, how can we get our bodies to actually cooperate with what our minds have sort of said? Look, maybe my body says I want to go to sleep now, but I'm not going to go to sleep. Or maybe my body says I want to go outside, but I'm going to sit at this desk. How do you make it so that your body actually is being coordinated as opposed to persisting like I still want to do something else? But you can use these things if you just notice like I'm not doing exactly what I want to do. And I could show you sort of right now, because for me it's still a continued process, of like deepening that. So I'm talking to you, I have ideas of how I should talk to you, like I should look in the camera, I should be on camera, whatever. But I could also just, let's say, stop prioritizing that at all and thought more about my body, then maybe I do this. Maybe I'm like, oh, you know what, I'm a little tired, maybe from a run or from whatever. Maybe I sigh, kind of collapse, let myself go, release, whatever. And you can kind of look at what those things are. And some of those things you might really be like, no, I'm not going to let myself do that because, like, you're tired, but you don't feel comfortable closing your eyes, or that you feel like looking or, doing something. Like I could just like, hey, it's been nice talking to you. I'm just going to like, like there are a lot of different feelings that a person can have in conversation, and, impulses that you have, like, will you just like do this randomly in a conversation with your boss or something? Like, probably not. But you might feel like you want to do that, or you're having a conversation with a girl or whatever, and you can notice like, I feel like moving this way or that way, but for whatever reason I'm preventing myself from moving in that way. The other thing though is, instead of looking at what you're preventing, you can kind of be like, hey, I'm going to just focus on what I feel like doing and trusting that I have good instincts and good impulses, and that my body is wise, and that I have kindness and goodness in my heart and whatever, and that I can trust myself and others or whatever. And then that might lead to a totally different movement pattern. And so there's a lot of different like layers of that. There can be layers of fear and belief that kind of prevent you from expressing yourself fully. Um, and so I really see those as like really big opportunities, just like talking to people and just kind of noticing like, what do you really like? Are you doing exactly what you want to do? Or can you notice something that you'd like to do, that you can do, that you weren't doing? Or like, how could you embody doing and being like really who and what you want to be more in the moment?
Yeah.
And that you can think about that both kind of psychologically. There might be like you could have a big idea like, oh, I have to go take a shower right now or something, versus like there could be something small, which is just like, oh, I'm just noticing that my arms feel like doing this right now. So I'm just going to do this, even though, like, because there's obviously situations where I wouldn't just start doing this, right? Like if this was a job interview, I guess it depends on the job, but like,
exactly. Clown school, you could go like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's exactly what I'm talking about, because it's just like once I start doing this, like right now, and this is like real, right now I am feeling something in my shoulders that I have to work through or whatever. Once I start doing it, I feel like, oh, you know what, my shoulders actually feel calm. I feel good. I'm kind of dancing around. That's great. But I could also just not do it and sort of be stuck with those feelings it could just be for years. And you might always have this feeling that it doesn't really feel like exactly right, but you just kind of keep doing that. And I think when it comes to sitting behavior, being at the computer, being on the screens, I think there ends up being this whole posture where back doesn't feel quite right, shoulders don't feel right, neck doesn't feel quite right, everything doesn't feel quite right.
Because sitting's not natural.
Well, so I kind of try to push back to some degree, because I think that there are ways to sit better. And so I think it's really important to be like, there's somebody that you can see sitting and be like, that person sits better than that other person.
Yeah, you're completely right. I get what you mean there.
Yeah, and there are people.
The way they sit in Japan, where they sit on the floor, I think that's probably much more natural.
Yeah. I at some point I was trying to set up, that I could sit cross-legged, Indian style or lotus position or whatever, that if you could set up your workstation like that, that can improve. Or there are a lot of just little minor things.
Yeah.
Just having a general mindset of like improvement.
Yeah.
Just like, what can I do to make things better? Maybe it's just like lifting up the computer a little bit, changing the angle of the screen. Maybe you need a pillow under your seat or on your seat. Or just changing certain angles, raising something, lowering something, taking those breaks, just integrating a little bit more movement. Maybe it doesn't fix everything, but it can fix a lot.
Exactly. What I like about what you're talking about is a lot of it is a mindset. It's a holistic thing. So, a lot of this mindset you're teaching people, it can be applied to a lot of aspects of life in general. Like whatever you want to do, just do it. As long as you're not breaking the law, or it's not going to cause you to lose your job. So like if you're walking down the street, like sometimes when I'm walking down the street, it's just because I'm weird. I'll like prance a little, or like
I started skipping.
I'll do random stuff like that, and people look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, well, I don't give a fuck what you think.
Yeah, literally, I've been skipping, like literally skipping down the street or whatever, and it's an interesting thing. And I bet there's that's a type of thing that I could feel that I wanted to skip, and I felt like it's sort of embarrassing, or it's just like someone's gonna kind of look at me funny or something. It's kind of a weird, like whatever, an adult to just skip down the street, kind of like tra la 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 or whatever. but I felt like that's what I wanted to do. And then, if I didn't do it, I still felt that I wanted to do it, and it doesn't feel like I'm being myself to not do it in that situation where there's really nothing wrong. And you end up saying like denying, yourself for some kind of vague, like, someone's going to laugh at you, or it's against some rules, even though there's no law that says, at least not here, that skipping isn't, it's not, or that you can't prance or whatever you want to do. But those were really interesting initial experiments that I sort of started doing, is just noticing, okay, if I'm walking down the street, I remember wanting to just open up my arms like this, even though I'm walking alone, to just do this. And I could sense that I'm afraid to just stand for a second in a street and just put your arms up like this, even for a second. And I'd recommend anybody who's interested in this to see if you're willing to walk in some kind of, crowded area or whatever, and just for a second put your arms up, or just for a second put your arms up like this or whatever, or just for a second close your eyes. And these are these little things where it's just like, oh, you know what, I am safe here, or I do think that I'm safe here. It is okay for me to close my eyes, or it is okay for me to move my arms to potentially attract attention, and to notice, also to notice the fear, and to notice how it manifests physically, and to be like, okay, I can feel this fear, and I can actually get this sense of like, what is sort of the pathology of like a physical fear of a movement that I actually want to do, and that actually like that you deeply want to do this movement potentially. Like it seems vitalizing, like, when you want to prance or whatever, it's part of like life, the idea of like, and that's kind of like the big philosophy or whatever, is just like, we're built to survive. There's a lot of instincts that we have that we don't get to manifest because we're not usually chasing prey. We're not being chased by predators. We're not fighting people to the death, for most of us anyways. But those are still things that are like, there's a lot of desires that I think like that are not being, we're not like well integrated into our environment in general, especially if we're not like in nature. You might want to climb trees, you might want to pick things, you might want to dig in the dirt, you might want to do all of these things, but instead, there are a lot of rules. The sidewalk is where you walk, the center of the street is where you don't walk. Everybody's property is their property. You can't go on someone else's lawn. That's weird. You can't just sit down in the middle of the street or anywhere. And I think all of those things end up being that we end up living a very sort of conditioned thing that's not actually what the body, if the body had what it's wanted, you'd lay down, in more areas, or you'd climb more trees, or you'd.
There was this one guy, he did what's called comfort zone exercises. I remember him giving a TED talk a few years ago in 2014. He would literally go to a random place and just lay down on wherever and just like do it for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And it got him more comfortable with himself.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I'll
totally.
tell you, I tried that. Before I came to LA in 2014, I tried that. I would just like lay down in random places, and you'd be surprised. Nobody laughs. And the only thing that happened was occasionally people came up to me like, dude, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm just chilling. But nobody's like, oh, he's an idiot, or oh my God. Like, nobody gives a fuck. One of the things that I talked about on my old channel, but I haven't really talked about on this channel, is that the biggest judge of a person is himself. And he manifests that on other people. He thinks other people are judging himself as much as he is judging himself.
Yeah.
So like you're walking around, that guy might look you in the eye and you might think, oh my God, he's looking at my clothes. Oh my God. No, he could just notice you, and then he's in his own thoughts thinking about other people judging him, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's interesting to just notice, like, we can be irrational. Like we can have thoughts that are not, they're not reasonable, but then we can have feeling like I used to think that people are laughing at me. I don't know where I got that, but it was from middle school or younger or something. And I just got this idea that people are they're probably laughing at me, or whatever, which is, I mean, it's like, there might have been some root or whatever, but like, there's a point where it's just like, no, that's just not what they're doing. It's just not it, or like, and it can totally just change your whole, how you relate to people. So there's a lot of really interesting stuff to just think about, like, what is a person, or like, what are interactions with other people? What do you expect? And that's why I like the whole holistic thing, because I'm just like, going into like what stresses a person out? Like what do you expect to stress out about in the next few weeks, and how can we look at it differently so that you expect something better? What is it about how we are misperceiving the world that creates the stress? Because someone could say, "Oh, I don't like going to work because it's stressful," and it's like, okay, well, why is it stressful? Well, I feel really bad. It's like, well, why do you feel really bad? And then maybe it ends up being, well, I didn't eat right, I didn't sleep right, I didn't get enough exercise, I'm not breathing well, and all these things. It's like, okay, well, all those things are like basically changeable. Those are totally within. You can't, changing your job might be something difficult for a lot of people, but like how you're actually doing it, there are a lot of stuff where it's like, you could have just gone to bed,
Yeah.
and we kind of think that we can't, or, you might have some kind of compulsions or something, or you think you have compulsions, but all these things I think we can be really confused about. And I think a lot of this really also has to do with agency, choosing and saying like, I choose what I do. And for people to say that, and I think that's a big part of the problem with school, is that I think I don't know if that's sort of the whole point, but like, I think part of the vision thing is like, when you tell someone look somewhere and they don't want to look there, forcing them to look somewhere they don't want to look I think it's a pretty big deal. And I think that's what's going on, is a lot of people are like, I work as a tutor. And my sense is really that just like most people just don't focus. They don't try to learn. They don't put in the time to try to learn the math and the English or whatever. The content's not that hard. But there's just like whatever, 80%, 90% even maybe never just like really sit down and just like, math, interesting. Like, let's figure this out. And I think a lot of people think they're really stupid, but it's like, no, you just didn't put in the time. You never put in the focus time.
Yeah. I would also add that sometimes it is the problem with the instruction material. Most textbooks, not in the humanities, but most textbooks in STEM are just so badly written. I'm just thinking from when I learned multivariable calculus, it's like, I know what it's trying to do. It's trying to build in my logic brain how this equation was derived, but the textbook can't make it fun. And the professor, of course, is teaching off the text, will be like, oh yeah, this, but like, it should be fun. If you think about it, deriving cool equations from existing assumptions is really awesome. But for some reason, it just somewhere between the textbook and the professor to the student, it just never becomes fun. So I would have to say this: our education system needs a little bit of revamp somehow. And I know America's trying with its whole like Common Core bullshit, but that's of course in a wrong direction. But I know they're trying to make it more just appeal to the mind in a different way, maybe be more friendly towards the kids' mind. Of course, if this were China, just get it beaten into you, right? Do a million problems, go to school for 16 hours, and then you'll learn it. But we want it, like we said before, we want intrinsic motivation, not extrinsic motivation.
Yeah, and to look at that and be like, okay, I mean, what do you do if someone just says screw this? What if that is actually just like how the person feels? And to kind of consider that, for themselves, like what if that's how you really felt in school, but then you kind of did stuff anyways, and are we doing that now? And like do we ever like what is it like, process that, I guess, and be like, hey, I just did a bunch of stuff that actually like, no, you know what? I shouldn't have been in school, maybe, or like that they didn't have proper authority, or that wasn't necessarily right for me to be forced there or something, or like, maybe I'm not so dumb or something, or I'm not like, my mind is like below average or something because I didn't pay attention in class, and so then I don't know math. Like maybe it was like I just didn't want to know. I didn't feel like paying attention.
Yeah. And the other thing, I just had this thought as you were talking about that, is that, see, I'm thinking from the Chinese way. You don't want to do the math problem, or you don't want to learn this thing, but you learn it anyways. But if you really do it, you put in all the time. In the end, you get rewarded. which is that, oh, you get into a good college or whatever. So at the end of the day, there is kind of an ultimate objective to justify it all. Whereas a lot of times what happens in the American education system, there's the semblance of choice. So you take physics, the instruction's bad, maybe you yourself are not intrinsically motivated, and then you're not interested anymore. And then that's your justification for never taking physics again. And then that happens with all the other things you do that you're not good at. And then it just builds this pattern of, okay, I just keep eliminating things I either can't do or have no interest in or whatever, instead of being like, okay, maybe I can find another way to do it and be more intrinsically motivated. You see what I'm getting at? So this the American system is almost building people to be like, fuck this, let's look for another quick fix. Well, fuck this, let's look for another quick fix. This isn't working. Oh, well, fuck it. So that's just a realization I'm having. Whereas it's not always good, the Chinese system, where it's like, keep on doing it, even if it's painful, right? That's how I got hurt when I did Kung Fu. Oh, you can't kick high, keep kicking until you get it. Well, you fuck up your tendons and your ligaments. So, there's something wrong about the Chinese way too. But I always try to find middle ground on this channel. And maybe there's something that both cultures can learn from each other.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the other thing that's sort of like really interesting about stress in general, which is like, how do you decide, sort of what to do on anything? And I think a lot of it has to do with like, do you expect to succeed? Or like when you're thinking about things, if you expect to succeed, what do you feel differently about the work that you're doing?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if you think that the work you're doing is effective and it's going to get there, then, and I mean, there's sort of just, I think, assumptions that we don't look at, like when someone's working really hard, like, do they really think that if it would take them another 15 minutes of work every day, that they'd really suffer so much? Do they think that they get fired if they would take, 3-minute breaks or something? Or like, what is actually, I was watching this today, it was a basketball video. There's some basketball player that will like, he was kind of like, he only has one speed, which is as fast as possible. And the coach is like saying like, it's better to have a variety of speeds. It's harder to defend against and stuff like that. And I think that's what's going on. A lot of people, they get into this kind of lower consciousness when they're like, okay, I'm not doing what I want to do. Screw this. And I'm going to avoid feeling my body. I'm going to avoid feeling reality. And so that's the thing I think about the body is like, I think feeling the body is always a good thing. Like it should be sort of essentially like you should always be aware of the body. And if there's any issues, I think it's really important to be aware of them so that you can do something about it. And I think that all of that will just help someone focus, so, if you like, you can give yourself permission to move your body more while working on some task. And so by doing that, it's like, okay, I'm thinking about some programming problem or, whatever it is at my work. Meanwhile, while doing that, I'm like, I adjust a little bit here and there. I think for a second, do some self-care, a little neck massage for a couple seconds, or I close my eyes and I think like this or whatever. I don't have to just like be on the computer like this. Like,
yeah, exactly.
And doing that. But, and there's just a lot of different little tweaks like that where I think we're like, what are our expectations on a daily basis of like growth in terms of our own, like how we move or how we breathe or our like general like feeling on life, like how wonderful life is. I think maybe we just never even like think about that or something, but like, I think if you're like, hey, I could make a breakthrough every day or like I can get to, some people it'll be easier. Like if you already meditate and you have a good meditation practice where it's just like, I can just breathe and I feel wonderful. And I already know that at least like in when I'm alone, right? So it could be when you just wake up after a long rest, you can meditate. And you feel, do you meditate like
not constantly, but I try to do it at least once a week. So it's something. In fact, I brought on a meditation expert today. I just interviewed a meditation expert. So that conversation is going up on Saturday, but we were talking about meditation. So it's something I'm going to prioritize because it is so important. But keep going. So
I mean, let's say a person finds out that they can meditate, and by meditate also I just mean maybe that they can feel their body, just like I close my eyes, say breathe, and I have a relatively like commentary free experience, like that I'm not just like thinking about my day or like problems or whatever, that I'm just like feeling my body mostly, and I'm like, yeah, my body feels great. This feels awesome. And I actually have an expectation the longer that I just sit here feeling my body, the more I'll just feel good. If someone has that situation as a sort of baseline, like that they could wake up and basically do that every morning, that can really be like an anchor for them for other experiences, where they kind of realize, hey, if I wasn't thinking anything, I would feel really great. And then you can kind of use that to kind of look at other experiences and be like, okay, why am I feeling bad right now? And also to have this sort of like a clear, like a contrast, to be like, here's how I should feel, or here's how I could feel. And that's just like clear of any bullshit that I create, clear of any like stress mindset or whatever. I get to like, wow, this is amazing. I'm so lucky to be alive. I feel so healthy and vital. If you have that kind of as a contrast to what's going on in your daily life, and then you kind of connect it and be like, well, hang on, actually the events in my life that aren't just me alone meditating, I actually want that to be a higher level, potentially, because I'm interacting with people. In theory, I should be producing value, or interacting with people where, there's even more like meaningful experience potentially, or at least on par. That's at least like a good goal or something. But basically, at least just having this simple practice, and I talk about it more like an audio guide or whatever, just practice sitting, just practice standing, just practice walking, just for the walking, and kind of having an idea of like, how awesome can you feel just walking?
Yeah.
Or like if I know you've done martial arts and some dancing and stuff, sometimes you feel really smooth. Right. Well, what if you could feel even more smooth, and to notice your body as you move and be like, okay, this feels really good. My hands, they feel great. I'm really feeling, wow, I have flowy hands. But when it comes to my lower back, I don't have that same level of like flow or something. And then to just have an awareness of that's a possibility that I could develop that. And then a question of, I have no idea when, because there isn't like a linear, you do 8 reps 3 times a day, and then in 4 months your back is like that. These things, it could be mindset, right? You say, no, you know what? I'm just going to decide I have it, I got it. And then, I'm whatever there, I did it or something. And I think there's a lot of kind of mindset when, if a person says, hey, yeah, I can feel awesome all the time. Yeah, my body feels awesome whenever I just pay attention to it. And then the work can be, okay, if you do have persisting stress, like what's really going on, and like what's the mindset, and what's the expectation. And, it could be like, oh, I have to divorce my wife, or, this work project sucks and I'm doing it even though the boss said, even though I think it's, bad, or, whatever variety of things. And you can try to figure those things out. But you can also just shift sort of how you kind of exist sort of physically, and kind of, that's been a goal that I've had, to just feel good sort of all the time. And I feel like if you're doing the right thing, then if you feel good about it, or you don't feel bad about it, or you don't feel conflicted about it. And at least for vision, and the idea of relaxation or not being stressed out, I sort of have this idea, if I'm doing the right thing, then I should be clear, and you can be clear about something. You can be angry, you can be sad, you can be whatever, full range of emotions, but really to try to just be doing that one thing at a time and fully process it, and stuff like that.
Yeah, it all goes back to the agency thing you were talking about. All that is agency. It's like, even the taking a walk thing. The analogy I brought up to the meditation lady that I interviewed today was, sometimes back in 2016, before I even started this channel, I would just I used to live in the border of West LA and Santa Monica. So I was technically in Santa Monica, but it was mostly West LA. but there's a place there called Sawtell. It's like a Japantown area, lots of Japanese people, lots of Japanese shops and everything. So sometimes I would just go into one of those Japanese shops, I get a little tea, and I just sit there and just be with myself and the tea for 2 hours. I just like sit there. I just like, okay, let's just enjoy. Let's just pay attention to what's going around me. Let's pay attention to what's going on in my thoughts, and let's just enjoy. And even that is a good thing to do. Like you talk about taking a walk for taking a walk's sake. I used to love to do that. In fact, a lot of Chinese families used to just like after dinner, they just take a walk and just take a walk for a walk's sake. It probably helped you digest your food a little too. But like taking a walk for a walk's sake just doesn't seem to exist in America now. In America, it's like if you're taking a walk, you better be power walking because it's exercise, losing weight. It's not like just like taking a walk with your family and your friends and just like having fun.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, I did it specifically also to take a walk with no destination.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting, it's an interesting feeling, you know, like let's say you have a day off, you know, and especially doing it without your glasses, you know, so you take a walk without your glasses, without your contacts, and you can set it up for multiple goals, you know. So one thing that people like is achieving multiple goals at the same time. You know, so you're getting your vitamin D, you're getting some exercise, you're potentially improving your eyesight. If you're not improving your eyesight, you're at least working on your sort of resilience in the event that you didn't have glasses or contacts, if you lose them or whatever, which is something I think everybody you should at least be able to feel confident about living with some blur.
Agreed.
Because most people, like, you can see a car, you know, you can see a person, you know, you might not see who they are. So this can be maybe a little awkward. Maybe sometimes you're looking at someone, you can't tell if they're smiling at you or if they're looking at you or whatever. But yeah, basically, and then you can go for these walks where you don't have a destination, which is very interesting physically because your body isn't necessarily motivated to go anywhere. And you can sort of feel like, what does it feel like to not have like a purpose as to where I'm trying to get to? And then you're physically kind of be like, well, I feel like going here. Oh, I feel like going there. I feel like doing this. And what it builds upon is that you end up being like, I'm doing exactly what I feel like doing. You know, and so you have this experience for, you know, maybe several hours of I did exactly what I wanted to do. And I practiced like getting more and more in touch with what exactly do I want to do, which is a really special and important experience that I think is a lot harder, you know, like when you're on a screen or you're in a room and you have, there's sort of these different kind of like, it's a different environment to work with. And it's not necessarily, it's not as easily, I guess, the exact thing for your body of doing exactly what your body wants to do. Or at least that you have a clear thing. Because I mean, sometimes the body's like, oh, I want to eat these snacks or something that aren't very healthy or something.
That's what happened to me right before this talk. I ate a bunch of snacks because I just felt eating it, which I'm feeling a little headache right now. That's why I'm taking off my glasses because I don't want to couple that with eye strain. So like this is helping my headache, but you know, it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the beauty of like the taking the walk outside without anything, where it's just like, you know, your only opportunities are just like to walk or to sit or to, you know, run or to jump or to dance or to, you know, do some Tai Chi or some yoga or, you know, to lay down or whatever. And so it just puts you in this context of like sort of guaranteed health win, you know, for the most part, unless you're going somewhere where you could get stabbed, which I guess you're trying to go to Skid Row. I don't know if you actually.
This is something I've been telling my friends. I actually have been walking around Skid Row a lot more than usual.
Yeah.
And it's just part of it is you realize, I don't know, it puts your life into a different context when you walk around Skid Row. You see all these tents and everything. Yeah. And you're just like, wow, you know, first of all, I'm glad I'm not there. But second of all, maybe a lot of my issues are not as big as I think, right? That's one of the reasons why I do it. But it just, another thing is part of it's just overcoming your fear. Like the first time I walked in Skid Row, I had a tactical light with me. So like, you know, it was during the day too. So like if someone grabbed me or something, I could hit them in the eye with my tactical light. But then eventually I was walking through Skid Row and I didn't even carry any sort of like defense weapons. I just walked through Skid Row. It's just like, and that's part of agency also. It's part of like everything we've been talking about. It's like, get past your fear. A lot of people they think, and I don't blame them for being skeptical that, look, oh, I can't do this. I can't improve my confidence. I can't improve my diet. Oh, I can't improve my vision. They think they can't do it, and then they never even try it. See, for me, my philosophy in life is, even if it doesn't work, at least now I have proof that it doesn't work. I'm not going to just dismiss it outright. If it's going to take 20 years of my life before I can know whether or not it might not work or not, then maybe it's not worth it. But these are things, like, for example, we can talk about the Bates method, the palming, right? The palming that you do to your eyes. You could do that like 5 minutes a day when you meditate. Cup your eyes, don't put any pressure on your eyes, and just and like, you could try that for a week, just 5 minutes every day. And if you feel like it gives you no benefits, don't do it. But don't dismiss it just because you think it's whack or you read someone critiquing it.
Yeah. And so I have like a specific I guess like a specific thing like on that, which is my basic thing is basically say relaxation. Right. So relaxation is the thing where I'm like, you don't exactly try it. Right. So if someone says, I tried to relax, or I tried the Bates method and it didn't work or something, my goal is for a person to basically improve their baseline when it comes to how coordinated their body feels, or how how relaxed, how much stress seems to be an issue for them. So for me, in terms of a disproving sort of the theory or whatever, is I need someone to say, hey, I really relaxed, I had tension in my eyes and my neck and my shoulders, and I managed to release and relax it, and yet my vision is still bad or something, and so far nobody's coming up with that. I don't have a counterexample also of this person that reports, I'm totally relaxed in my eyes, I'm totally relaxed in my neck, I'm totally in my whole body, in my mind, totally relaxed, but I have really blurry vision. Everybody that I'm talking to that has blurry vision, I'm asking, hey, do you have some tension in your neck or your eyes and your mind and stuff like that? The more common answer is yeah, but everybody does, or of course I do, or they get uncomfortable with the question and they're just yeah, let's not talk about this or something like that. So, because you see the skeptical people, and they're just well, the Wikipedia says that it was debunked or something, and it's it's not. It's if we look at the data and we see the increase, that's something like tenfold, how do you know which camp you're in? If you're in Hong Kong today, a 20-year-old, and 90% of people, 20-year-olds now have myopia, but 80 years ago it was 10%. The way I see it, 8 out of 9 people don't have a genetic. It's not a genetic issue for 8 of 9 people probably. So and who's really going to tell you, oh yeah, using your computer differently and spending time differently and relaxing your body is not working? Who is actually succeeding to release the tension in their bodies and to use their to use their bodies in a way that feels more right or whatever, and then they're not getting results? Those are results just in themselves. So that's why I try to be look, everything I'm trying to suggest has intrinsic value. I'm not even trying to tell a person to do palming for 5 minutes a day, because even that could be oh, well, I tried it. I palmed for 5 minutes a day and it didn't work. So,
and the funny thing about all that is, if they're in that mindset of, oh, I'm trying it, then they're not relaxed, right? So it goes against the whole philosophy. Look, I have to do it to prove I'm wrong. Then your body's not relaxed.
Yeah.
So you said, you just have to find it. Just find it intrinsic in you if you wanna. I love what you said about, look, even if it turns out it doesn't really help your eyes that much, at least now you're not afraid. If your glasses get knocked, someone tries to rob you, your glasses get knocked, well, you can still know what to do, even with a little bit of blur. Even that is intrinsically helpful. When I was taking my jiu-jitsu lesson last week, I didn't use these pair of glasses because these are really good. I don't want these destroyed. So I had an old pair that's already scratched and I was wearing them. And the professor said something which another jujitsu guy who was a friend of mine said the same. He's like, Jerry, you know that like people who do jujitsu for a while, they can do it with their eyes closed. So what he was telling me is, Jerry, like take off your fucking glasses and don't worry about it. Like you'll learn, and eventually it's going to be natural. You're going to understand the leverage. It's all about the body. But like even that in itself, like when he reminded me of that, I'm like, yeah, you know, back in the day when I took jujitsu lessons, or back in the day when I took Muay Thai lessons, I didn't wear glasses. I just, you know, if needed, I would stand close. But you just trust, your body a little bit. And so the intrinsic value of being able to say, you know, I'm not completely blind without my glasses, that itself is even very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's also really important, you know, that we use words that reflect the truth, you know, and that if I say something, let's say I say something that's actually totally false, you know, I should reflect on that, you know, and so if someone says I'm blind without my glasses, you know, like why do we exaggerate at all? You know, like why, you know, like because it's like saying, well, I'm not blind, but what? You have a terrible experience without your glasses? Because then it's sort of like, okay, you have a terrible experience when you don't have your glasses. So then do you feel disabled sort of, you know, and that you're just like 1 second away from being in this like state of significant discomfort, you know, because that's sort of like this thing where it's like, well, that doesn't sound, you know, so beneficial, you know, and yeah, I mean, I guess it's an interesting thing, you know. I sort of, and sort of why I moved away from it to some degree, because both people are skeptical about it, and it's sort of it's an interesting, it's a difficult kind of area to breach into this area where someone might have like, yeah, this makes me very uncomfortable or something. It's like, well, you know, I don't have to talk about it or something, or to like to, I don't know, yeah,
Exactly. But so tell me about do the people in your, whether your family or let's say your friend circle, are they all nearsighted, or are they all like have good vision?
So it's a mix. I mean, my grandparents on my mom's side both had glasses, and she had glasses. On my dad's side, my dad wore glasses basically like for driving, but for the most part didn't wear glasses. His father, actually, interestingly enough, did get glasses, and at some point he just stopped using them, and I think his vision restored or something. But that wasn't like a story that I was like conscious of during my kind of initial process or something. And then my grandmother there, she didn't wear glasses. My sister has a low prescription and usually doesn't wear them. And then most of my cousins, I guess, there's a mix, I guess. Yeah. And I have a number of friends that I've kind of, you know, told them about the method or whatever, and that have taken off their glasses and, you know, they've improved their eyesight, you know, and to some degree, or some people have, or some people didn't really try. Like some people find it very difficult. You know, it's you know, I mean, the idea of like, you know, my idea and the Bates idea, you know, that like the greatest goal sort of is like, he says that any mental strain will cause blurry vision, like even the slightest mental strain. And so this is kind of it's an interesting thing to kind of think about, like, okay, what is mental strain? You know, or what is the slightest mental strain? Have I experienced the world ever without any mental strain? I mean, we have moments where, you know, we were laughing, you know, in that moment, was there still a mental strain somewhere? And so, I don't remember where I was going to go with that. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just trying to say that, like, as a goal, you know, it's a big goal, I guess,
Yeah.
to have no mental strain whatsoever. And okay, yeah. So yeah, now I remember. So that idea, you know, for some people, some people have issues, right? There's some unresolved issue, some kind of trauma, or just some kind of like just major stress, and a lot of life is spent, you know, avoiding, you know, confronting that stress. You know, like, I'm scared of death. I'm scared of my finances. I'm scared of friends. I'm scared of whatever relationships. I'm scared of, you know, politics, or some disease that I think I have, or like whatever it is. and I mostly don't think about it. And that seems very common. I even looked at, just statistically, I think people spend less than like 15 minutes a day, like actually thinking about their own life and stuff like that. And so the idea of, okay, well, we're going to remove all stress and strain from your life. We're going to clear out all mental strain so that you can totally just like be in the moment, just pay attention to what, and this is why I think Dr. Bates was more successful, because he was working with people 100 something years ago that were a lot more like, they're subsistence farmers, they were self-reliant, more commonly. Their view of the future, I think, involved, I think it was even before World War I or something, like, but it involved, more predictable things, like the seasons, and that people could use their own bodies to get their goals. There was a night sky, I think, which is a big impact. People sleep now with lights on all the time, and there's noise.
Yep.
You can be in $1 million house and there's a freeway really close and it's loud all the time, and you don't have any there are a lot of things that I think physically that I struggled with or whatever, that like just kind of coming to the reality that the body might want something, but the reality is something else, where it's like, I'd like things to be quiet. They won't be quiet, or if they're quiet, then you don't get fresh air.
Exactly.
And also just the freedom to make noise, for example, is you're in a house, like I have neighbors that are whatever, 6 feet away, so I'm modulating my voice to some degree, or you have roommates, or there's all these different things that like, I think that, 100 something years ago, it was a lot more common for a person to be feeling like they have privacy, that they have the space to make noise at whatever volume they want to make, at least sometimes. I think walking was a big factor too. The fact that we drive a lot, is a really big impact. When you just have to walk to go everywhere, I think your whole sense of your body really changes a lot. When you think about, because also you need to, like, this is it. When you walk everywhere, you need to calculate the energy required to bring yourself back.
True.
And
especially not just energy, but water too.
The what?
The water also, if you walk somewhere, it's a hot day.
Yeah, water. Energy, the time, all of these things kind of factor in. When you have a car, I can be tired and I'm going to drive 70 miles, or I'm going to drive 100 miles, or, it doesn't matter, it matters, we shouldn't drive tired and whatever, but like the whole sense of like the cost of things, makes a really big difference. And also just the time, the fact that you're like, okay, so I walk somewhere and now I'm going to have to be with myself, maybe alone for half an hour or 40 minutes or an hour, just walking. I don't have a cell phone. I don't have a radio. I don't have anything. I just have me walking. And that was very common, to spend a couple hours just moving your body, and moving through space in a manner where there are less rules. Like they'd walk in a path in a field, and maybe they'd stop to look at some fruit or some animal, or there might be some predators that they actually have to worry about, bears or bobcats or rattlesnakes, or all of these different things that make you more aware of your body. When we're in our cars, we don't have to be aware of our bodies.
And that's why so many people have road rage. They don't even realize that they're tense and that their whole body, and they're not breathing. And so what happens when someone cuts you off, when traffic starts? Like all of that bottles up and it explodes.
Yeah. And then the other thing, which is really nice about, walking or biking or running, is that you can translate your high energy states into movement, which is different. Like I used to, like, I was in some time in my life where I was getting really, really happy and stuff and tons of energy. And then as soon as I get into a car, I'd realize I can't actually translate like, you can't really drive a car and be like, woo, and just like, like you have to keep the foot, a certain, if you push the foot this much more, you're crashing. So I found that kind of really interesting, or just thinking about the whole prancing thing, or skipping, or like, basically I'm just saying back in the day, people I think are a lot more likely to fully express with their bodies, um, and just be in that context. So today people, they're not walking, they're not exercising, they're not getting darkness, they're not, I mean, it's just this long list of things where I'm like, I think the skeptical position is totally unjustified until the group that you're looking at is legitimately following like reasonable habits.
Yeah.
The person's going to sleep and it's dark in their room and they're sleeping enough. They're eating what we actually consider as a healthy diet. They're actually exercising. They actually have a generally healthy, positive outlook on life and have friends and so on and so forth. And in general, it's like, well, no, they're obese. They don't eat any fruits and vegetables. They don't exercise. They don't spend any time thinking. They spend 30 hours a week watching TV. They're depressed, et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah, just like a thing for the, if there's still skepticism or whatever, to really just be like, look, do you have an opportunity to make something better in your life? That's all that it's about. Is just like, that's all my work I'm trying to do is just help people figure out what they could do to improve their quality of life, and that they'll actually do. It's not like to come up with some plan that they won't do. It's just to be like, oh, you could put blackout curtains in your room and you'd get better sleep. So little things like that. Yeah.
Exactly. And dude, the one thing you mentioned about how back in the day people had the night sky. I live in downtown LA, and there's definitely no night sky. There's light pollution everywhere.
Yeah.
But one of the things I realized, and it's only after you mentioned the night sky, is that if there's a night sky, there's more incentive than to look up and gaze, right? Which relaxes you mentally and relaxes your eyes. But because there's no night sky, I don't look up and gaze. The only time I gaze is if I consciously tell myself to relax my eyes, or I'm on the 35th floor, sometimes on the 36th floor, and I will look out into the skyline. Unfortunately, LA doesn't have a skyline. It's being built right now, so there's not that much to look at. But that's why living in New York, that's the one cool thing. There's such a great skyline, so even though they can't see the sky either, as in the stars, they can at least gaze out. But like in LA, it's the worst of the worst. You can't see the stars, so you don't look up and feel the sense of wonder and relax your whole eye and, realize you're insignificant. So, stop caring about people. But you also can't see a skyline to appreciate the city and relax your eyes that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fortunately, I mean, you can still, you find some good views, that you can, you go to the beach or, the city is still somewhat visually interesting, just like different colors and stuff. Or seeing things lit up, it's not the stars, the stars on Earth or whatever, seeing the, like just the flickering lights and things like that. Like, I mean, those can serve a function, but I mean, it's definitely true, being in the night sky, really in a place with relatively lower light pollution, it has a very nice feeling. But, for some people, I think you can, like, if you can think about that feeling, and that gives you some sense. Like when I think about a night sky with like beautiful stars, it does kind of get my imagination going. And if you can actually deepen that imagination and just be like, okay, well, let's just pretend that I'm looking at that and kind of notice if that kind of affects how you feel, to kind of just like keep going in that direction. And I definitely did a lot of work with imagination and stuff like that. That I think is a good direction to go.
Yeah, agreed, man. Have you ever done a deprivation tank?
Yeah, I did that a few times. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing it again though. I haven't done it in, it could be like 10 years or something.
Wow. Yeah, it's something that I've been thinking about doing. I've never tried it, but everyone who's done it says it's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
What was your first experience doing it? How did you feel?
I feel like I mostly like fell asleep. I feel like I had a sort of dream state, hypnagogic kind of like, sort of maybe like an added element of like sort of out of body type feeling, like that it was like a dream, but I guess like some dreams that I have, I guess I feel less that I exist. I guess that it's more just like the only thing is like what I perceive. and
Mm-hmm.
not maybe myself as the perceiver or something, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like I sort of had an experience like that. But I used to be pretty. Have you heard of John C. Lilly?
Why does that
You
sound
know,
familiar? Tell me more while I look them up.
I think he. I don't know if he was the inventor of the tank or something, or just someone that really spent a lot of time with them. But he like supposedly talked to dolphins and like went to like.
Oh, this guy. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know Jeffrey Mishlove? Did you ever see his series of videos, Thinking Aloud?
Oh, I gotta check all these out. Jeffrey
Yeah,
Mitchell.
I'm writing it in the chat here. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
yeah, it
please.
used
Yeah,
to be
right in
really
the chat. By the way,
yeah.
someone in the chat really liked your blue eyes. So it
Oh,
was
thank
quite a
you.
while ago, but that's someone liked
Yeah,
your eyes.
excellent. Thank you very much.
Jeffrey Mishlove, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeffrey
Yeah,
Mishlove.
he has a lot of he did a lot of interviews with a lot of pretty interesting people,
Mm-hmm.
psychological kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Psychonauts, they call
yeah,
it.
yeah. John C. Lilly had a lot. Like he was like seeing these just like different levels of reality, or just like oh yeah, he'd do ketamine. He was doing a lot of ketamine, um, which apparently now is kind of making a resurgence as like have you heard about it for like
No, tell me
depression?
more. I thought like for a while the cops or authorities were trying to get people to stop taking ketamine, but it's making a resurgence apparently.
Well, yeah, I don't know in terms of like recreational use, but it had some like research that's like showing that like a single dose was like more effective for it, like had like a 3 month plus like positive effect on depression or something.
Oh wow,
Like the
that's
people
amazing.
having like yeah, but yeah, I don't actually know that much about it. I know John C. Lilly eventually was saying that he wasn't into it anymore. That like he had some idea of God, he had some kind of God type thing that he'd communicate. I think he called it echo or something like that. But yeah, it's some interesting. Like he has an interesting cosmology of like different levels of sort of like personal heaven and hell, like with like a negative and positive kind of like the more negative number, I guess, the more hellish or something, and just like I don't know, different ideas of I guess like that you're maybe one level's like you're connected to everybody and it's all love, or versus like I don't know, maybe there's a level where you're not connected to everybody, but you're like maybe doing really well for yourself. And that's like a level of like kind of spirituality, success, good feelings, or whatever. And then there's these different levels. Um,
And I
and yeah,
wish
I
our
mean,
society talked about this stuff more. Like this is stuff everyone needs to talk about because right now there's like, okay, you're either single or you're lonely or you're married or you're in a relationship. There's like what you just told me briefly about that. There's other levels of potential happiness and how the state of being you are with people. And we don't
yeah,
talk about that because
yeah,
yeah, so that's something that our society needs to talk about more.
yeah. It's huge. Like, and who can actually be an authority also? Like who's going to tell you, look, here's how happy you can be, or like here's the level of gratification connection with other humans beings can be. Like who could say that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you could kind of like you could look at someone and be like, "Oh, you don't seem like you're enjoying interactions with other people." But it's a really interesting, I'm thinking about it because it's like, there's certain people maybe you're around them and you feel like a big spiritual glow or some kind of like you got this like real powerful feeling, and then someone else you don't. And then like to what degree is it about you showing up in a certain way, and like, just like how do we even perceive life? And I mean, there's a lot of different like I don't know, just about like the values. And I think we should definitely be looking at that both in terms of physical expectations of like how great should your body feel. And I think a lot of it just has to do with, we have this marketing, which is taken over, which is just saying like, hey, just do whatever you want, sort of have a good time, eat the Twinkies and it's all good, whatever. And it's like, it's not like not everything is like, different things are different. Like it matters if we don't exercise, or if we don't get vitamin D, or if we don't like, have a good nutrient balance or whatever, but everybody's just saying, oh, it doesn't matter. You can eat, you can drink 2 Cokes every day. It's no big deal. And it's like, no, I think nutrition is a big deal. Like I think there is a very significant like opportunity for enormous life change. Just looking at energetic balance.
Yeah.
And that's something I've been thinking about. Which, like, everybody says not to eat that much. They want you to eat less, but like, you eat food for energy. And if you want to be more energetic, you should actually be looking at like what energy level you want to be at, and then looking at, what is the food cost of that potentially, and figuring out which. I mean, so there's just like a lot of crazy stuff. We're just like, a mega balance. People say you should get it, but almost nobody actually does it. And it's like, I mean, and then there's just sort of the mental side, or just the idea of no mental strain. What if I actually had no mental strain whatsoever? Like, what's an experience like with that versus constant like avoidance of fear of something? Or, there's always the thing with the body also is just like, in pain, I think, is that the pain is always real.
Yeah.
Or like that if I have a, like I'm not, like, I mean, I would think that we wouldn't deliberately put ourselves in pain. Just like that I'm wrong. Like, oh, you think that your neck is tense and uncomfortable. Actually, it's not. You're wrong. It's like, no, the body is actually saying, hey, listen, you gotta do something else or whatever. And so that, I think, really clouds our mind, to have those like unresolved things that are actually a very high priority, right? Like, if there's something wrong with your body right now, like, wouldn't you want to fix it now if you could fix it now?
Yeah.
And then, but you can actually be there and be like, oh, I'm not doing it, and I'm just going to choose not to do it, and I'm just going to ignore it, or whatever. And it's like, well, what is really the cost of that? And I think the cost is really enormous, because I think that the reality that we should strive for basically is for the entire body to say, all systems go, everything is wonderful. Anywhere that you feel in your body is just saying, hey, everything's just perfect. Whatever you want to do with me is okay. It's going to work. Like that your body is your instrument to take it where you want to take it, as opposed to your body saying, there's something fucked up. You fucking deal with this, or I'm going to get mad or whatever. And it's like getting more and more, things are going to get worse. And that fear kind of, it, and then just the question of like, how vital, like what does super vitality feel like? We just have a really shitty frame of reference when literally, like, it's literally the norm to be super unhealthy.
Exactly. And yeah. I talk about this last time, or not last time, but in one of my live hangouts, I talked about this, but even the way Americans take a dump is wrong. So starting from a baby, when you're potty trained, you learn to accept uncomfortableness. Sitting to poop is not uncomfortable. That's why kids don't like to be potty trained in America. Like, there was a study. This is so funny. I can't believe I'm mentioning this, but I actually might do a video on this. There's a study back when I did positive psychology. I took a course on positive psychology, and there was a study comparing kids in, I believe it was Shanghai or Beijing, versus kids in America. And this was a few years ago. Anyways, it was all about potty training and how, oh my God, look, kids in China seem to have potty trained like almost 8 months to 2 years before kids in America. That means, oh my God, kids in China must have some sort of, like, in the Chinese culture must have some sort of inherent conscientiousness or something built into their education system. And so I wrote to the professor, I'm like, how about this? I'm going to take Occam's razor. It's not some culture that makes Chinese people like better at like just following rules or whatever. Maybe just because as a baby, I know 3 things. I know I need to poop. I need to eat, and I know I need comfort from my parents. And then sleep comes naturally. I don't even know if I need to sleep. I just sleep. But anyways, I know these 3 things. So if I'm a toddler now, maybe I'm 1 years old, and now the parents say, yo, go poop into that hole. You're like, that hole's scary, but you squat down and boom, all your poop comes out immediately. And you're like, okay, that's fine. But now your parents like, go sit there. You're sitting there. It's a weird position, especially if you're a boy. Your poop's coming out, and it's like irritating your prostate in a weird way. It just feels weird. You're like, I don't want to fucking do this. So maybe that's the reason. It's part of the comfortness of this natural position toilet versus the sitting toilet. And so I told my professor that. My professor's like, damn, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, I mean, I'm not saying China's perfect either. You know, they grow up with pollution, they grow up with all this bullshit too. But in America, starting from a young age, you just like accept a bad position that fucks you over for life when you're pooping.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean,
it's something probably you've never heard if you haven't watched my channel, but it's something I'm very
I mean, that
because
is
a lot of problems, a lot of health problems start with your gut. If your gut's not eliminating well, if it's all a tube connected, you know, Terrence Popp calls it the A to the B, right? So it's all from, if your B's fucked up, in between it's all fucked up.
Yeah. 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 No, I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, it's, I've found that sometimes squatting, you know, I guess there have been points where I was maybe more constipated or something, and if I would actually squat, it would just come out easily, whereas I could sit in the, you know, on the toilet like regular, and it wasn't you know, moving along or whatever. I mean, I think we're basically doing everything wrong. You know, like there's literally not one major habit that we're doing right. We don't eat right, we don't sleep right, we don't poop right. We can even argue that we don't pee right, you know, in the sense that I think that our like waste is supposed to be like nourishing the soil.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, it was normal to do human manure, and then it's as though they're like everybody's just like, no, human waste is like totally disgusting and horrible, and it's like, okay, I can sort of agree with that, but it's also, it shouldn't be that way, you know. So it's like, why is it like why is pig shit or cow shit like? Is there some inherent reason that cow shit is like? I mean, maybe there is or something, but I find it hard to believe that, you know, those things would be necessarily better. But yeah, I mean, we don't sleep right on average. We don't eat right on average.
Yeah.
We don't
I
exercise
mean, we don't even
right. We don't
question. I mean, there was a sleep study that they did about sleep position. Like a lot of us don't even question the position we sleep and stuff like that. And like you mentioned such a great point about just even waste. And when you mentioned waste, something I thought about was in some European countries, you know, you could argue that it's emasculating men or whatever. I'm not going to make that judgment, but like guys sometimes just like are taught to pee sitting down now. So
yeah.
not in tune with the body, man. That's a common theme. And I brought on a massage therapist. That interview I think is going up a day after tomorrow. But it's also about, she's talking all about, look, be in tune with your body, notice things, right? If you notice things early, it's not going to be like, holy shit, oh my God, I need to go to the doctor. I need to go to the massage therapist, because you catch it before it gets to that point of you're completely out of whack.
Not only that, it's just like you have an opportunity just to make things better. You know, it's not only like about, you know, disease. It's just about like, you could feel better. You know, like there's a lot of stuff that a doctor will, like if you have tense shoulders, most doctors just won't say anything about it. You know, I mean, like you have to, at a certain point, they might start calling it scoliosis or something. But like,
or they might give you some sort of cortical shot to reduce the pain temporarily, which doesn't help shit.
Yeah. But I mean, for, you know, and there's an opportunity to just feel better. And psychologically, I think that's where there's a really huge opportunity, because it's not just like if we just think about the body, it's easy to sort of be numb about something or be like, yeah, it feels kind of tight. Something that I was thinking about also is there's an issue, which is that I think that when we have kind of a messed up sort of nervous system or whatever, like where we're pinching the nerves or something like that, then what happens is I think we're not sending information or sending commands to that part of our body, and then we're also not receiving information from the body that well. So we end up kind of like we're numb to the air, instead of like being in horrible pain. We end up kind of being numb to the issue, so it doesn't feel like it's such a big issue. But if we look at kind of other avenues, or if we look at psychology or something, then we'd be like, oh yeah, I am suffering from confidence issues. And when I really feel it triggered, I notice, yeah, my head is like this and I'm down like that. And, I feel like I can't just like, whatever, like blast this, like, no, I'm here. This is who I am. This is what I do. And for, if you're looking at sort of from the psychological and kind of self-awareness perspective, that's where, what might be kind of minor, kind of like shoulder tension or whatever, could just be like, oh, I really want to go ask that girl out or something, but I didn't. And then I felt myself shut down, and the shutdown actually felt like this. Or I wanted to buy that thing, but I felt like I didn't have enough money, and I felt like a tension in, my lower back or whatever. And I think that's what puts together a lot of stuff that people think is like totally woo woo. Like if I tell you, oh, back pain might be associated with money, I think a lot of people are going to tell me like, yeah, stupid or something. But I think that if you actually start noticing like, hey, when you're angry, does your left pinky toe get really tense, or do you like actually get your chest or your neck or whatever, and you start to see there these associations and stuff like that.
Yeah. And the first step is to start noticing. Most people don't even take the time to notice. Like today,
Yeah.
the meditation instructor told me, hey, sometimes when you're sitting or just standing, push your toes down. And it's a motion I've never really consciously done before. So I push my toes down. I'm like, whoa, that's a new part of my body I've never really consciously moved before. And like, but that's like that's the start of me being more conscious of, or mindful of certain parts of my body, right? So you have to tell yourself there's an exercise that it doesn't work for me, but it might work for some people. It's like you start from the toes, you start from your head, and try to notice every muscle that's from the top to the bottom, and just start noticing every muscle and be like, okay, which one's tense? Which one seems weird? Which one seems sore?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And all of those things, I mean, just how you notice it and how you feel like how you feel you control it or don't control it. That's something that I'm just like every day I kind of get more of a sense of like more in flow and more like I control it, but more I don't have to control it. And it's a very curious thing to think about, like, okay, what is the person that has practiced this all the time? How do they feel their body? What's different about us than that yoga master? Do they have something physiologically fundamentally different, or did they, it's because they stretched, or is it because of their mind? And to what degree is it like, because I really think that there's huge steps that we could make that actually have to do with a mental kind of emotion, more than just physical. Like you could do the splits, your hips or the pelvis, the way it's kind of set up. I think it could be, but there's maybe the emotional, mental stuff, there's just like this kind of representation of how your body works that you could actually adjust.
And I thought about this one person who really exemplifies everything we're talking about. You know about Wim Hof? He's called the Iceman.
Yeah.
This guy's learned to consciously control his brown adipose tissue. So now when he needs to heat up, instead of something out of our control, he heats his brown adipose tissue up. So he's an exception. But people have been trying to follow his guide or whatever, but it shows.
Yeah, I love it.
Before Wim Hof, people were like, yeah, we can never control our autonomous nervous system, blah, 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 blah. But, you look at history, you look at even ancient Chinese and Indian texts, and there seems to be people, who could do things, like people who could control their temperatures and stuff. So Wim Hof's an example of someone who modern day learned.
Yeah. And I can I started doing cold showers, somewhat based on that, thing. And I noticed a total huge difference, and I recommend that too for people that want to do eyesight stuff, is it's a great opportunity for something that you might be afraid of, something that you have a physical response to, and something that you can actually notice, like your expectations are sort of different than the experience. And I think if people do it for a longer time, they're going to. Yeah. Oh, okay. I mean, just the perception. Yeah, just the perception of the body changed, and I just noticed that now, like, I like taking the cold showers. They feel good, that it's not like me doing it because someone told me this is like a good thing to do. It's like it feels refreshing, and it's like it's this mindset thing. Like, do you really think cold water is going to kill you? like that the water in the tap is like cold enough that it's going to cause you damage? I mean, maybe it could for some people or something, but there's a lot of like people are like, no, there's really no way that I mean, I'm sure we could get some scientist on that's going to tell you, yeah, no, it's not. You know, it's 60 degrees, and like, you know, that's totally good. And that's an interesting opportunity to go there and like do it. Like, I recommend trying to do it without showing that you're uncomfortable. You know, so instead of going in there and being like, oh, cold, 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 well, whatever, see if you can try to just go in there, and then also just noticing like how your body responds, and just that your body has like systems, you know, and let your body do its thing and see what that looks like and feels like. And
Yeah, I used to go swimming even during the winter time on the East Coast. And what I always do is I'd remember if I try to be like, I try to dip my toe in the pool, then I dip my feet in. It was hard, but I just jump into the pool and it would be easier. And I love that image you gave. Don't be like, oh my God, I'm taking a closer. Just be like, okay, I'm just gonna walk in consciously, be mindful, breathe. Breathing is very important. And in fact, Wim Hof talks about how to breathe in cold environments, which I don't know how, but all I know is if you just breathe, because you're not tense, you're relaxed now, it'll help you get through that initial cold.
Yeah, and it just totally changed the way I perceive the body. You know, at certain points where I start feeling my internal body as warm.
Exactly.
The water is going on the skin, and it's going off the skin, but it's not. You know, I don't feel cold on the inside. And I don't know. I mean, I imagine, you know, his level is like much greater. You know, I'm not going in ice baths or swimming in the Arctic Circle or all this stuff, but I mean, he's doing it, you know, and I think it's been a good thing that I've found myself more and more as I get more positive in my life, is to look at someone else doing something and be like, oh, they did it, so I could probably do it. You know, what did they do? How did they do that? You know, instead of thinking like, you know, wow, look at that other person, or being like, yeah, well, he's probably not good at this thing that I'm good at or something.
Yeah, exactly. I had a friend named David back in middle school and high school and even college. And he was like a Wim Hof guy. He naturally just wasn't afraid of the cold. And the really sad part was in high school, he started running cross country. He was one of the best cross country runners at Bethesda Chevy Chase High School, the school that he went to. And because of the pressures of being on the cross country team, he started taking less risk with the cold, and he slowly started packing more layers. And then he just like he lost it. He now is afraid of the cold too. And it's like, so the reason I bring this up is because one of the comments in the chat section in the live chat said, oh yeah, Wim Hof is just a genetic mutation. You can't learn it. Well, even if you're a genetic mutation, you can still lose it. So you can learn it, probably not to the degree of Wim Hof, but
and how do we know? Like how do we know someone's a genetic mutation? Like I find these arguments, you know, where it's like, you know, show me the person that's actually doing the basic right steps for the thing and failing. You know, because I see it for everything. Oh, you can't learn a language after this or that, or learning a language is hard. It's like, how many hours did you spend trying to learn the language? 17 minutes? And it's just like, 15 actually, or well, no, I downloaded the app and then I stopped. It was hard. It's like, okay, I mean, you know, you had a valid experience or whatever, but like, you're not an expert on this field. So many people are experts on failure. You know, like I've had a disease for 20 years, so don't tell me how this disease works. And it's like, okay, I mean, I'm sorry for whatever condition the person has had or whatever, but it's just like, you don't become an expert in something by not succeeding to achieve. You know, it's like your expertise is not the expertise we need. You know, we have to look for other ideas.
Wrong expertise.
Yeah. But it's an interesting. I mean, but yeah, I mean, there are differences.
Real quick, I'll just give a brief aside. So many people ask me, Jerry, how do you speak English so well? You know, you're Chinese. And I'm like, it's because I put in a lot of fucking effort, man.
Yeah.
Like I hung out with mostly Americans when I was in America, and which is not the case for a lot of Asians when they come to America. They hang out with themselves, and I don't blame them. It's easier. but I hung out with
When,
mostly Americans. On top of that, I read a freaking lot, man. I used to read a lot. I don't anymore because I'm too addicted to the online flickering screen, but I used to read a lot. So like, if you put in as much effort as I did, you probably would speak English like this too. I'm just telling everyone who's ever asked me that question, which I get like almost once a day. I get a comment on one of my videos, Jerry, how's your English so good? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, did you hang out with white people like every day at school and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah. What is your story in terms of like when did you move to the United States, or like when did you start?
So I was in Chicago from when I was 4 until I was 7. So for the first year, I didn't speak English at all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
something, it's really funny how the mind works. Basically, that first year, even though I didn't speak English, because I didn't speak English, but I was such a little kid. And so little kids, you don't have as much pre-existing things and habits, right? What I realized what I was doing that year I wasn't speaking English was I was learning how the grammar of English, I was basically learning how the structure of English took place. So basically, once I learned the words, once I learned what things meant, I could put them into the structure of English. So, so for anyone looking to learn a language, I think, I've talked a lot about how to learn words, but how do you learn the structure of a language? You literally have to pretend like you're 4 again and just like observe people talking and observe people for a year. I know it takes time, but once you observe the structure of something, it makes it in a holistic way easier to then learn the language. But anyway, so for about 2.5 years, I spoke English, and then I went back to China, and I spoke Chinese mostly for a few years. But to my mom's credit, she forced the family to speak English, at least for an hour every day. Even though my parents' English sucked ass, but it was better than nothing. And the last year of my life in China in 2000, I met this guy named Jeremy, and he was a professional tour guide. So his English was probably the best besides mine in the city of Chengdu. And so me and him would get together and speak English all the time. And there was a place called the English Corner where everyone went to practice their English. And it would end up just being me and him talking, and everyone surrounding us listening. It was like 100 people surrounding us listening. It was really intimidating. But like, because I had a few years in America and he was a professional tour guide, we were the ones that everyone wanted to listen to.
100 people?
Yeah, 100 people. That place was packed. It's China. And Chengdu is not the biggest city, but it's still bigger than most areas. Let me search up what the Chengdu metropolitan area is population now.
But but an audience of 100 people to just hear you having conversations and
here's having conversation. Like, we talked about the Three Stooges and everything. We like talked about life, but so that helped me maintain my English a little bit. And then I came back to America for 5th grade, and I took a little bit of, I didn't take any ESL, but I took what it was called cursive. I took cursive writing classes to learn, and then that's about it. I've been in America ever since.
Yeah.
And I made it a mission. I told myself, I'm going to make friends everywhere. I was never the type of person to be like, oh, I'm only going to hang out with my own people or whatever. And so I think it helps. It helps my English a lot.
Yeah.
Now that I talk about Chengdu, I kind of miss it. It's a good place.
Yeah. How many people?
14 million. So about the number of people in metropolitan LA.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's big.
So one of China's tier 2. So tier 1 cities are like Beijing and Hong Kong's technically not considered tier 1. It's like better than tier 1 and it's not technically ruled by China completely. But Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen are tier 1 cities. And then cities like Chongqing and Chengdu and all that stuff, they're like 2nd tier cities. So even a 2nd tier city in China has more people than America. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's cool. I sort of started learning Chinese. I mean, I'm not like totally committed, I guess. But like I started doing it on Duolingo, or like picking it up kind of bit by bit.
Yeah. Because one of the things I noticed, and maybe I should, this makes me want to do do a channel just devoted to language learning. But one of the things I notice kids doing is that, let's say they're just learning how to speak English, or they're just hanging out with adults. They try to copy the way the adults talk. And I realized that's what you still have to do when you're learning a new language. You have to observe how they talk, and you have to copy how they talk. And by copying how they talk, you're kind of soaking in the language, and you're soaking it into your system non-logically. Language is not, it's logical, but it's also not logical, because me talking to you, I'm not thinking about how to formulate a sentence. It's like I'm getting the thought and it's coming out. And the problem with how a lot of people, including most schools, teach language is they're making it logical. You're like, this is how the structure of the sentence is. This is how you conjugate it. It's like, no, that's not how you learn how to learn a language.
It's boring, and it's like giving people tools that they don't want or like can't use yet, as opposed to just like giving someone exactly what they want.
Yeah. So what I realized, I think, to answer my question, because a lot of people were listening to my rant about language a few hangouts ago, it is honestly to learn the structure of a language, you have to really pay attention. And again, this goes back to the mindfulness thing we were talking about this whole content. You pay attention to how native speakers talk. You listen and you follow their structure, but you don't analyze. You just follow their structure. And after a year following and mimicking, you'll soak it in, and then you can logically break it down. But don't try to logically break it down, because then it's going through a middleman, aka your logic control center.
Yeah. I think the other thing which is nice is like to actually try to communicate, or have some benefits. So like for dating, I find it like pretty interesting. It's like if there's a person that you want to communicate with that speaks a different language, that like just, one phrase that you could send to them in that other language, or that you could understand what they say. I find that the flow of that to be very interesting, because like you really, you're just talking to them at first or whatever online or something, or on text. And so like each message, it's like, I really want to understand what they said. And I have this like added desire to like be understood or whatever. So, even if I'm just using Google Translate, it's end up just kind of like seeing, or just like modeling the patterns. I guess what you're saying is like I had this image of like, someone like says, tell Mary she's beautiful or something, or like you see one person saying like, hi Mary, you're a beautiful woman or something, and then someone else does like the same thing, or
I love what you're saying, because if you give yourself an incentive to learn the language besides, oh yeah, it's about the grade, and you need something exactly like you said, you need something that's concrete. Not like I want to learn the language to understand the culture, or I want to learn the language to travel. Those are too broad. But like you said, I want to learn a language to date a girl of this country, right? So like, if you want to date a Korean girl, you're going to learn things like saranhae, or you're going to learn like, what's the word they always say? Kajimaseo. You're going to learn shit like that, because that's the language of romance. So if you have concrete reasons to learn a language, then it's going to be easier for you to, one, be motivated, and two, just pick it up, because your mind has context and you don't have to logically justify it.
Yeah.
Kajimaseo means like, don't go, please. Kajimaseo.
Yeah, and you get so much of a kick, I think, of having those like funny phrases or whatever, just like when you say it that they don't expect you to like know, or like something like that, or and I think that obviously they don't do enough immersion, in general, or it's a language is definitely very, very interesting. A lot to talk about there.
What have you learned in Chinese so far? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there anything interesting or any word that you find very cool?
Well, I guess firstly, just like the character for wool or whatever, for eye, like that it was like a hand and a knife or something is what, are you familiar with that? Or like what?
How about War, the character for me? Yeah, War.
Yeah. So I mean, like, are you conscious of it as
no, not at all. the one thing about the West is like they like to overanalyze characters and be like, oh yeah, people think about the characters. No, we don't.
Well, no, I mean, I realize most people don't think about that kind of thing, but like, I mean, at some point, because that seems like a pretty big, that's like a big kind of, it's an interesting thing to think about.
It is. It is. I love thinking about it, but I know most people in China, I don't think about like, oh yeah, this character's interesting. Let's break it down, what it's made of. Most people don't, but I do because that's just what I like to do. I like to see patterns.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I have, so, I know how to say like I have to take a shit or whatever, like, just some really basic stuff, I guess. I mean, I can start to identify some numbers and, nothing too, I mean, I'm kind of interested, I think just the not having to be verbs, I guess it seems, right? There isn't that, and I find that interesting. Yeah, I mean, otherwise, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say keep going, keep learning.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I think it would be really awesome.
what part of the country are you in, by the way?
I'm in the Bay Area.
Oh, okay. So okay, you're on the West Coast. So yeah, there are probably a lot of places to like go practice, or not even practice, just to like be immersed.
I play poker pretty often, and there's a big Asian community. There's a lot of Chinese, Vietnamese, or Korean. So yeah, I think it'd be really cool to surprise people.
Exactly.
But yeah, I have a friend who's in China. Like he learned Chinese or whatever. Now he's working there or whatever. And yeah, it seems pretty interesting.
Exactly. Well, dude, man, this was a great conversation. We really talked about a lot, and it fits with your whole paradigm of look. It's all about your holistic attitude. So, do you have anything else to add while we're on air?
Well, I mean, I could talk for a long time, I guess, too, or whatever. But like with regards to the eyesight, or
with regards to eyesight, just to wrap it up, and any last lingering thoughts or anything.
Let's see. Well, I have a YouTube channel that I have a number of videos on that. I really do believe that people can really improve their eyesight in short amounts of time, and that this can represent one of like the greatest and most amazing things that they could really do. I mean, like that they really, and I'm saying this like not just as someone that could like sell something, like I'm saying it without selling, that I am interested in finding someone that can legitimately show how they can't do it, or understanding why they really think they can't relax or whatever, but like, I really think that, by just like sitting and paying attention to your body, and just like releasing tension, that really is effective if you do it. And if you have a problem with it, I think that's why you should do it, in the sense, like if you really feel a major aversion to just sitting and breathing and paying attention to your mind and your body, isn't that like the exact proof saying that you have something that's disturbing, that there's something preventing you from feeling peace and calm? Like, do you actually believe that you can't find peace and calm? Because that sounds like really bad. And I don't think that that's representing like the truth, because people get to a state of peace and calm from all kinds of conditions, so there's someone that, I mean, like there's someone in a worse position that's getting to a better position, right? There's someone that had a much worse condition that's now in a state of greater peace and calm. And so yeah, I mean, stuff along those lines. And I could make a general recommendation to stop using contacts and to use glasses instead, because glasses are easy to take off on demand. So that's because essentially, in general, what I want to recommend is to people spend as much time without lenses, as possible, and to also realize that like it's not supposed to be difficult. People think that it's difficult, but that's actually because of their misperception. Like, it's not harder to move with grace than to move, in like a, whatever, poor coordinated, like tense, whatever manner. It should be easier. I think it can take years or whatever to, I think, move from being like a really, uncomfortable, whatever, poor posture to some ballet dancer, or like whatever. But I think better movement just rewards you more, or like better mental presence and stillness and calm rewards you more. Your body appreciates it more. Stuff like that. So just something to try to keep in mind, because I know people will do this and they'll think it's hard and they'll quit, or they'll take off their glasses. They'll be like, "Oh, I can't see. It's really hard." You have to like understand that we're trying that the way we've been using our eyes has been to strain them too much. And that like clear vision basically happens when you're not straining. It's like when you're not trying. Like most people that are seeing clearly without lenses, they're not trying hard to see all the time. They're not like putting in a lot of mental effort, being like, okay, I have to look over there, and then just like, constantly thinking about it. They're just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm looking over there. I see whatever my eyes are pointed to, because why would I not be focused on where my eyes are like pointing at? It's just like it's a subconscious kind of like process. So that's something that was like a perpetual kind of reminder. It's like, oh, things are kind of blurry. I guess I'm kind of doing things wrong, like in some way, and that I can just let myself do things right, which a lot of time, and back to the language for a second, myopia actually comes from Greek, from like mu ops, which is like shut eye. Which I think, maybe kind of implies that the people should sort of close their eyes a little bit more. And I find that to just be a great test, to just be like, is there something you can do that will make things better? And if you just notice that closing your eyes makes your eyes feel better, you can just do that.
Yeah.
And to spend time every day just trying to do what's best for your body, because I can't see, I mean, if anybody has like a good reason as to why you wouldn't do that, let me know, but otherwise it just like sounds great.
Yeah.
I just spend 5 minutes just paying attention to my body, just trying to figure out what would feel best for my body, or what does my body have to tell me? Like what information is your body giving you that you could act upon? Is it that your eyes are tired? Is it that you want to go outside? Is it that you want to do an exercise? Are you feeling a stretch? Because sometimes you can like intuit there's a specific stretch that if I would do it right now, I would gain a significant release, which is different than like come to a yoga class and follow along, where I think you can still kind of have this resistance. So if you can just kind of get more in touch with yourself there, you might have a much more accelerated path.
Agreed. Cool, man. Well, dude, I've already put your channel in the card. So for those of you watching, just click the card and you guys can find him. His channel is also in the description. Once this goes live, so it's going to take like 5 minutes to process when we finish our hangout, and then it'll be public. I will add you as a collaborator. So there'll be 3 places for them to find your channel.
Yeah, I'll make a link if you want. I have an audio guide that's just like me going over doing a few different exercises or activities, like me just standing, me just sitting, me just laying down, me moving, and kind of just explaining more directly or just keeping the focus on that. I could make a link that would be free, like for your viewers or whatever.
Yeah, you can send it to me now, or you can send it to me later, and I'll just put it in, and I'll make sure everyone knows.
Yeah, I can send it to you after, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good, man. So everyone watching, this was David Hestrin. That's how you say your last name, right? Hestrin. Yeah, David Hestrin, man, and he wants to encourage everyone, be mindful, and there's many things about your life that you can improve, including your vision.
Yeah,
definitely, David. Thanks again for
thanks a lot. It was a blast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Definitely. Bye-bye.
Cool. Bye.